The wind howled across the vast Russian steppe, carrying with it the smoke of burning villages and the cries of men who would never see home again. To the east lay the Volga River, wide, unforgiving, and frozen in the grip of winter. To the west, the German Sixth Army advanced with confidence, their boots stamping rhythm into the earth, their tanks rolling forward like steel beasts. They believed they were unstoppable. They believed that Stalingrad would fall in weeks, perhaps even days. They believed that destiny was theirs, but destiny has no master. And in the ruins of Stalingrad, destiny was about to be rewritten in blood, fire, and ice. The year was 1942. Hitler had turned his gaze toward the south, toward the oil fields of the Caucasus, the black gold that could fuel his war machine for decades. But there was a city in the way, a city that bore the name of his greatest enemy, a city that had become a symbol of Soviet strength, Stalingrad. To take it would humiliate Stalin, to destroy it would shatter Soviet morale. To lose it was unthinkable. When German troops first approached the city, they found themselves on open ground, advancing quickly as they had across Europe. Their tanks thundered across fields, their aircraft ruled the skies, their artillery turned defenses into dust. Villages were flattened, resistance was crushed, and the Volga drew nearer with every passing day. The men of the Sixth Army carried victory in their hearts, believing themselves the sharp edge of an empire that could not be stopped. Then, on August 23rd, the Luftwaffe unleashed destruction unlike anything the world had ever seen. The air was filled with a roar so loud it seemed to split the heavens. German bombers swarmed above, their shadows blotting out the sun. And then, the bombs fell. Block after block of Stalingrad vanished in fire and thunder. Explosions tore the city apart, collapsing homes, factories, schools, and hospitals. Children clutched their mothers as walls caved in. Firestorms swept entire districts, sucking oxygen from the lungs of those who hid underground. The heat melted steel, shattered windows miles away, and turned streets into rivers of flame. When the dust finally cleared, Stalingrad was no longer a city. It was rubble. And yet, in that rubble, life remained. Civilians crawled from basements, coughing from smoke, their faces blackened with soot and tears. Soldiers dug themselves from collapsed trenches and prepared to fight again. The city had been broken, but its spirit had not. For Hitler, it seemed victory was near. For Stalin, it was the beginning of the fight. He issued his infamous command, "Not one step back." The people of Stalingrad were ordered to resist at all costs. Retreat was treason. Surrender was death. And so the city itself became a fortress. Workers who once built tractors now built barricades with steel beams. Teachers handed out rifles. Women dug trenches. Children carried ammunition. The ruins became weapons. Every collapsed wall a shield. Every broken window a sniper's nest. The city did not merely resist, it struck back. When German infantry entered Stalingrad, they expected to march through streets. Instead, they found a labyrinth of rubble. Tanks could not maneuver in the narrow alleys. Artillery fire only buried soldiers deeper in stone and steel. Each building was a fortress, each basement a hiding place for machine gunners. The Germans called it Rattenkrieg, the War of the Rats. And indeed, they fought like rats in the dark. Battles were fought over staircases, over single rooms, over corridors where men killed each other with knives, bayonets, and bare hands. Grenades were hurled across hallways. Flamethrowers turned basements into ovens. The air reeked of gunpowder, sweat, and blood. A soldier might survive for days without seeing the sun, crawling through holes in walls, fighting in attics, killing an enemy only feet away. Snipers ruled the ruins, their bullets striking men who dared to lift their heads. Soviet marksmen, hidden in shadows, picked off officers and machine gunners. Their rifles whispered death, their patience endless. One shot, one kill, and the city remained theirs. Factories became fortresses. The Red October steel plant, the Barricadi factory, the tractor factory, each became battlegrounds where men fought with desperation. Workers who once operated machines now defended them with rifles, hammers, and grenades. Tanks were built in the morning, rolled out to fight by afternoon, and destroyed by evening. The sound of gunfire never ceased. And still, the Germans pressed forward. Street by street, building by building, they paid in blood for every step. The Soviets clung to their ruins, fighting not for victory, but for survival. Stalin's words echoed in their ears. Not one step back. Autumn came, and with it the skies turned gray. Rain turned streets into mud, blood mixed with water, forming crimson rivers through the rubble. The Volga became a graveyard, ferries sinking beneath artillery fire as reinforcements tried to cross. Men waded through freezing water with rifles held above their heads, knowing that if they slipped, they would drown before reaching the shore. Then winter descended like a hammer. The snow fell in silence, blanketing corpses that lay in the streets, covering tanks frozen in place, hiding the scars of battle beneath a white shroud. Temperatures plummeted to 40 degrees below zero. The Volga froze into a sheet of ice. The wind cut through clothing like knives. For the Germans, the winter was a death sentence. They had no proper clothing, no reserves of food, no fuel for warmth. They had expected to win before the snow, but now the snow was their executioner. Soldiers froze in their foxholes, their fingers black with frostbite, their faces cracked and bleeding. Entire units collapsed not under enemy fire, but under the weight of the cold. Hunger became the true enemy. Supplies were stretched thin. Rations were cut until a man received only a few hundred calories a day. Soldiers boiled leather boots into soup, gnawed on frozen horse carcasses, and fought over crumbs of bread. The strongest preyed on the weakest. Discipline began to crumble. And yet, Hitler demanded victory. He commanded Paulus to hold Stalingrad at all costs, declaring that the city must be taken, no matter the sacrifice. And so, the Sixth Army fought on, even as death crept into every trench, every cellar, every heart. Then, in November 1942, the Soviets struck back. Operation Uranus. With a force that shook the earth, the Red Army attacked the flanks of the German position. The Romanian and Hungarian divisions guarding the lines collapsed under the assault. Soviet tanks and artillery poured through the gaps encircling the Sixth Army in a matter of days. The trap was closed. Nearly 300,000 men were surrounded in Stalingrad. Desperation consumed them. Supplies were cut off entirely. The Luftwaffe promised an airlift, but it was a cruel illusion. Soviet fighters hunted the transport planes, anti-aircraft guns filled the sky with fire, and the few supplies that did arrive were never enough. Soldiers received handfuls of flour, a frozen potato, a few cigarettes. Men starved in the shadows, their ribs protruding, their eyes hollow, their skin stretched thin over bone. Disease spread. Typhus, dysentery, frostbite, madness. Some soldiers lay down in the snow and never rose again. Others clung to life, whispering prayers to a God they no longer believed would save them. Still, Hitler demanded they hold. Still, Paulus obeyed. The Soviets tightened the noose. Artillery shells fell day and night, shaking the ruins, collapsing bunkers and filling cellars with dust and smoke. Soviet infantry advanced block by block, relentless, unstoppable. German resistance grew weaker by the day. By January 1943, the Sixth Army was broken. Men surrendered in groups, throwing down their rifles, raising their hands in despair. Others refused, fighting until they were cut down. Corpses lay in frozen heaps, stripped of clothing by the living who tried to stay warm. The city itself seemed to groan beneath the weight of suffering. On January 31st, General Paulus surrendered. For the first time in history, a German field marshal had been taken alive. 90,000 prisoners were marched into the frozen steppe, their boots dragging, their breath shallow. Behind them lay 300,000 dead, swallowed by Stalingrad's ruins. Of the 90,000 who marched away, only a fraction would ever return home. The city was silent now, silent except for the crackling of fires and the whispers of the dying. The Volga carried away the smoke, black against the snow. Above the ruins, the Soviet flag rose in triumph, torn and blood-stained, but unbroken. Stalingrad was more than a victory. It was a turning point. The German war machine had met its match. The illusion of invincibility was shattered. From that moment on, the Red Army would push west, step by bloody step, until Berlin itself lay in ruins. But the price was beyond imagination. Nearly 2 million lives, soldiers and civilians alike, extinguished in the furnace of war. Fathers, sons, mothers, daughters, all gone, consumed by fire, ice, and steel. And yet, amid the devastation, a truth remained. Stalingrad was not just a place where men died. It was a place where humanity endured. A place where the will to survive overcame hunger, cold, and despair. A place where courage was measured not in victories, but in the refusal to surrender, no matter the odds. Even now, the name Stalingrad carries weight. It is whispered as legend, spoken as warning, remembered as the darkest yet most defining moment of the Second World War. Stalingrad was not just hell on earth. It was the place where humanity stared into the abyss and refused to fall. If you had stood in Stalingrad surrounded by fire, ice, and death, what would you have done? Share your thoughts below. And if you want to witness more stories of history, courage, and survival, make sure to subscribe to the channel and join us on this journey into the past.